Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on the backhoe, trying to get that power steering cooling line fixed. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Thanks for joining me. Sad day today. My dog died this morning, so gotta get the backhoe up and running so that I can bury her. Mixed emotions. She's been sick for a while, and so glad she's not suffering, but still gonna miss her. So let's get this situated. So the first thing we need to do is get this panel off. Just one hook on there, the other one's broken. That just lifts off. Set that aside. So here's the engine, as you remember from the fuel tank. The problem we're having is, if I can get you down here, this hydraulic line right here, it has a 90-degree bend. Well, that's a hose. It's not supposed to have a bend like that, and that's where it's leaking. And I'll show it when I get it out, but there's also, I can see a flat spot. So it's been rubbing up against the engine as well. So yeah, it's been getting ready to leak for a while. And then back over here, I'll show you from underneath, it attaches into the transmission. Okay, so here we are underneath. And as you can see, this one here has already been replaced. And then this one here, it's hitting the transmission here. Then it comes up. Here's that 90-degree bend that it's not supposed to have. And then it connects to the transmission right up here. All right, so just let me set you down, and we'll get this thing out. So the fitting itself is 7/8, and the part that goes into the transmission is a little smaller, so I got a 21 millimeter on that, because it's also turning as I go to break the fitting loose from the transmission. Let's see here. Alright, so that's broken loose. And what I'll have to do is make sure I tighten down the fitting that goes into the transmission before I go and put the new hose on, just to make sure that everything is nice and tight and not leaking. And make sure I'm not in your way. Hopefully you can see. All right. All right. So I got that broken loose. Now just unscrew it. Nothing too hard on with this yet, anyway. Knowing how things go, though, things could turn south quickly. So we'll just take it slow and make sure we pay attention to everything. Alright, so that's that hose unscrewed. Alright, so got the hose out. So we got the hose right here. It's got a bend on one side and it's straight on the other. Let me get this cleaned up and I will go over how you determine what hose you need. Alright, so I'm not sure how well this is going to show up. I'm going to see what I can do about making it show up when I'm editing, but I'll describe it. Right here, it says it's Gates. So Gates is a manufacturer of hoses. There's several others, so it doesn't have to be a Gates. It says it's half-inch here. It says it's half-inch here. And then it's a 100R hose. So the 100R gives its pressure rating. So I had showed you that the other hose had been replaced, and I'll insert it here. That one's not a Gates hose. So I have new hydraulic parts. Wasn't 100% certain what I was going to need. I get my stuff from Discount Hydraulic Hose, not a sponsor. Very good prices as far as what I can see. So here's the hose I got. Again, it's not Gates, but manufacturer doesn't matter. So this is a poly hose. It's a half-inch hose. And it's a 100R16-08. So the -08 hydraulics are measured in 1/16 of an inch. So this 08 is 8/16 or half-inch. So with the fittings, you can see here, it says it's an 08. So it's an 08 on this side, and I got 08 by 08, so it's a half-inch on this side as well. They did have 08 by 06, which would have been 3/8 of an inch. I do have some hoses that are 3/8 hoses, and then I have some that are 10. So they're 5/8 hoses. So this shape here is a JIC fitting, and that's what's most common on my backhoe. There are several other different types of fittings, but for the most part, this is what my backhoe uses, is the JIC. This here is a Parker Mini Crimp swedge machine. So the way it works is you take a die. So die is just made up of little segments. They have a little shelf right here. You can see that, and that's what your hose fitting sits on as it goes to crimp it. And the segments just roll up into a circle. So the segments just roll up into a circle, and then they go into the swedge machine. So it just sits down in this taper here. You can see how the pieces themselves are tapered. So let's get that put in. It's pretty simple, it just drops in. Nothing to it really. Then you have a ring that goes on, and what that does is it creates even pressure as you press down. And you have this collar here, and there's a little nib here that it sits in. So that's the machine set up the way it normally came. Now I did find the bracket for allowing you to raise it up, so let's get that situated. Alright, so that's the machine set up in operating position. So by having this bracket, it allows the hose to come up from underneath with the fitting on it. And then so the fitting would stick through here, and then you would pump this handle. So with hydraulic pressure, it presses down. So it's a little hydraulic press. So it will press this down like that. And as it goes down, it crimps this collar. So you need to cut this hose to length. You do that with a die grinder. And then we'll fit the fittings on, and then get it reinstalled. All right, so this old hose has one 90-degree and then one straight. It has one male JIC end and one female JIC end. This 90 is shorter than the one I got. Hopefully it won't be an issue. And I'll probably make the hose a little bit longer, just so that I have some play to try and avoid this 90-degree bend. You can see here, this is where it was rubbing up against the engine. Right here is where it was rubbing up against the transmission. So this hose was too short, or some parts had been bent and moved it so that it became too short and not correct for its where it was sitting. You can see here some chatter too, so it's been rubbing on other things. But this right here is probably where it was leaking. You can see some oil coming through it, and you can see the metal that's inside the hose that gives it its strength. You just take your fitting and you push it all the way in till it's seated. This hose itself, the quality of it, it's gets a better bend radius than some others, which is why I chose it, because it had that 90. So I'm just trying to give myself every opportunity to get this correct. Something to keep in mind if you're making hydraulic hoses is what the ends are. So it's not a big deal with this because we have a bend and a straight, but if you had two bends, you would need to see which way they were clocked. So clocking is, if you looked at a clock, you have 12 o'clock straight up, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So you look at the positions of a clock. So you would take one end and say, okay, that's 12 o'clock. And then you would look at your hose that you're replacing, and if it had another bend on the other end, you'd see, okay, compared to the 12 o'clock, what position is the other end in? So, you know, like I said, it could be 3, 6, 9, but it could also be 4, 7, you know, so it anywhere in the clock you could have an offset. But when you're replacing the hose and building it, you want to make sure if it has two bends that you put them in the same direction, because if you build it wrong, well, now you've just wasted the hose, the fittings, because nothing is reusable. Well, I shouldn't say that. Nothing's reusable as far as the fittings go. If it was a long hose, you could always cut the ends off, save it for building some other hose later on. But the fittings are junk, and the fittings honestly are the most expensive part of the hose. So it behooves you to pay attention. But again, it's not an important situation here because I have a 90 end and a straight end. So the straight end just goes on straight, it doesn't matter. So we have our ends together, and then try and keep it together, and then we need to straighten that out. So you go to this edge here, because this hose will slide into the new fitting about that much, so you don't measure to the end because you don't have the end. Although on this end, because I have it fitted already, I can put the ends together. And then, so you want to measure, and then, like I said, I'm going to give myself a little bit extra. So it would come to about the 2 on this hose. So if I was going to try and make them exactly the same length, I would go to the 2. But I think I'm going to go to the H here and give myself that little bit of extra. Plus also with this being bigger, it may work in my favor. And again, this one is much more flexible than this hose was. So, alright, so we're going to the H, stick a die grinder. You want to try and make it as square as possible. Get it cleaned out. There is one of the wires is sticking out a little bit, so we'll get that smooth. Okay. So here you can see the makeup of the hose. It has an inner rubber. Then it has 2 layers of steel wire wrapping around it. And then it has the outer casing. So the hydraulic fluid flows in the middle. The wire gives it its strength. The outer coating protects the unit. Okay, so because this does have only one bend, makes my life a little easier. I don't have to try and fish that bend up through. So what I'll do is I'll cheat a little bit and I'll run this hose down through the die. Like I said, that goes down and sits on that little shelf. We can take our ring and put our collar back. All right, so now you want to make sure that as you're pressing, the hose doesn't slide out of the fitting as you're compressing it. So start doing that. You just take it slow. You also want to make sure that the fitting itself doesn't rise up in the thing. So you want to try and pull down lightly so it sits on that shelf. And then once it starts to bite, it's pretty much stable. You just crank it down. Of course, the bigger the fitting, the harder it is to press, especially when it's just sitting loose and everything wiggles. They do make swedge machines that run with air compressors. They also make them that electric. Just with what I had going, I figured that this would be the best. Plus, those other ones can cost $5,000 and up. This one here was considerably less. So you want to compress it so it's all the way down. So that's down. And you release your hydraulic piston, and then you just slide it out. And as you can see here, that's all crimped down, fitted onto the hose. And you can see how much bigger this was before it got crimped down. So it squeezed down quite a bit. And then you take your straight, and you fit it on the other end, like so. And you can see how much space, there is between the fitting and the hose. And then, because this is straight, it's fairly easy to come up from the bottom. Slides up in, and then you just catch it on that shelf. Tighten down your piston release, start pumping, pulling down gently on the, keep that fitting against that shelf. But you don't want to pull too hard, because then you'll pull the hose out till it grabs, and then pump away. So there it is down. You release the knob, piston goes back up, and then you pull your hose out. So there's that end, and there's that end, and then we'll just compare again. So we ended up adding about a 1/2 inch to the hose. So that should hopefully keep it off the engine and the transmission. Plus with this longer 90, hopefully it helps, it doesn't hinder. So let's go back and put it back in the backhoe. Okay, so if you remember, I said that this fitting in the transmission was loose. So let's make sure that that's tight before we go and put the hose on. And that was quite a bit loose. So I'm sure that might have, well, I'm pretty sure we probably had a little leak there. And then the 90 goes down here at the transmission, and having the longer 90 is going to push it away from the transmission, so it shouldn't be rubbing there, so that's good. And then the other end will come in. We'll go behind this other hose. Maybe. Alright, so putting it behind that other hose automatically makes it want to rub. And it appears that that steel line has caught on something in the past. So it appears that this steel line has caught on something in the past. It feels like it has a pretty good crimp in it up here. I'm gonna try and straighten that out a little bit. Hopefully I don't crack it. Okay, let's see here. Alright, so by bending that a little bit, it's now a little straighter. And actually I'm going to take that 90 off just because that'll be the easier of the two to put on. So that needs to bend down more. So that's still going to hit right here. I'm not sure what happened here, but you know, the backhoe's at least the backhoe's third owner, so could have been anything. At one time it was used to plow snow. I don't know if the person had employees who may or may not have cared about the equipment. You never know. So let's see here. Let me try. I'm bending it this way and get it straight. But don't really have room. And I gotta be careful how much I bend this, because if I bend it too much, I'll destroy the metal line, and then I'll have to try and source that, which I'm sure isn't cheap or easy to find. Let me get you guys out of the way. I'll bring you guys back when I get it situated. Okay, so I ended up taking this hose off and then taking... Alright, so I took this other hose off just to give me room to work. I took this screwdriver here, stuck it in that line, and I was able to bend it straight enough to allow me to get it on. So you can see here, it's away from the transmission, it's away from the engine block. It goes in, and the fitting screws in up there. So I'm just reinstalling this other line. Just the 2 7/8 nuts on the hose. Then I'll fill up the transmission with hydraulic oil, and then I can go about burying my dog. So I will set you down there as I tighten down the last 2 fittings. So there's that one. Put you down here for this one. That's tight. That's tight. And the other 2 are tight. So that's that. Oh. Thanks for joining me on this adventure. I'm sorry I didn't film the whole screwdriver thing. I wasn't sure if it was going to work, and then it did work, and it was too late to film it. Appreciate if you went down and hit that thumbs up, and hit me up in the comments, subscribe, ring the bell. Thanks for watching, and as always, God bless.